So welcome, Mike, officially to our Office Hours webinar. And it's all yours. And it's about at a glance proposal graphics. Run the show, Mike. Thank you.
Oh, that's it. I love that I'm a big fan of no long intros because I don't care intros about me. I'm here for you. I'm here to make sure that you're able to do your job better and faster. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. I'm going to share with you real world practical tips, techniques, and tools, things you can use immediately after this webinar to make your job so much easier. I am going to pause my video so that I don't take up any bandwidth. And Bhaskar will be monitoring the chat window. So if you have any questions, please ask in the chat window and Bhaskar will share it with me. At the end of this, I am going to give you a link to my slides and a few more surprises as well. Let's get cranking. When we create content, it is a conversation between two people, whether it's written content, oral proposals, bids or proposals, or if it's a written document. It's a conversation between two people. The first person is the author. That's the subject matter expert or the person communicating the information. They either write the content or make the graphic. And the second person is the reviewer, the decision maker, the evaluator, whatever you want to call them. They are learning from the content. The author's should be focused on why they're sharing the information, whereas the reviewer is going to be focused on why they should care about that information. If we put those two amazing perspectives together, which are critical, then we're able to create at a glance winning proposal graphics. There's a process that I like to follow. It's broken up into two phases, conceptualization and rendering. Conceptualization is seeing it in your mind's eye or maybe sketching it out, something like that. And then rendering it is actually making the graphic so that other people can digest it. The way I remember this process, I'm using an acronym right now, and I'm just going to call it GASCAP or gas in the States, it would be, but overseas it would be Petro or something like that. But the way I think of it is you're kind of fueling the mind of the evaluator, the reviewer, the decision maker. You're giving them the information to choose you. You do not need to remember this acronym. It's just a trick or a technique that I use to help me remember the process. So what is the first thing that I need to know? Well, the very first thing I need to know is, what is my goal? What's my goal? What is my objective? This is why the author is sharing this information. I'd like to, as an author, I'd like you to know something after I share my content, meaning that after you've digested my content, what do you now know? What will you do or whatever? So in this instance, maybe my goal is that you know the schedule for my deliverables. Or maybe I want you to know how our process mitigates risk, or perhaps how I identify coding errors quickly, or I want you to understand our solution at a very high level, or why our solution is quote unquote more better, or should I say more betterer? How to save money and time. I want to show you how to save money and time, or maybe my goal is to show, hold on, my little thing's in the way, how our QC process works. Sorry, my little widget is in the way. I couldn't read it. That's my goal. So I need to understand what my goal is. My goal is ultimately my objective, what I'm trying to communicate. I need to figure out what that is, because how can I create content for something that I don't know if I don't know what I'm trying to say? So how can I create content for something that I don't know what my goal is or what I'm trying to say? Critically important. So the next thing is, once I understand my goal, I'm going to make an announcement. I'm going to tell everybody, I'm going to tell the world what I'm trying to say. I'm giving the reviewer a reason to care now. So first I figure out what I want. Now I need to say something to the reviewer to make them want to digest my content. Think of the announcement as a summary. It's summarizing what I'm about ready to share with the evaluator, with the decision maker, with the reviewer. I am now giving them a reason to be engaged with my content. No engagement, no communication. No communication, there's no way that we're going to get the win. So when I summarize it, I use a technique called M&M. What do I mean by M&M? What I mean is I need two pieces in my summary in order to be successful. I need a motivator and a means. Now, the motivator is going to be something that resonates with the reviewer to make them want to care about, engage with our means. Our means is how we provide a solution, how we execute something. So perhaps a motivator might be, hey, make your job easier. I totally want to make my job easier. All right, keep talking. How do I do it? By using this new tool. Your motivator can be implied. It can be implied. So for example, if you're sharing a risk mitigation tool, I don't know that you need to literally write the motivator in there because obviously it reduces risk. However, it has been my experience that decision makers, evaluators, reviewers, they're fractured. They are thinking about many other things beyond just what you're sharing. So for that reason, I like to be explicit. You can be implicit, but my recommendation is explicit. You can have up to 3 motivators. Why? Because you have different types of evaluators. You may have a strategic thinker, a tactical thinker, maybe someone who was drafted to evaluate the bid or proposal or document, and they could care less. They have no horse in the race, meaning that they are not invested in the outcome. So you can have up to 3 motivators. Your motivator, your announcement must be 1 sentence long and have an M&M, a motivator and a means. The next thing is that I need to spell it out. Basically, when I say spell it out, I'm saying you need to provide proof that what you just said is accurate. How do I do that? Remember, this is a conversation between 2 people. If I walked up to you at a networking event and I said, "Hi, my name's Mike. Nice to meet you. By the way, I heard you're struggling with something. I can make your job easier by using this new tool. I have my motivator. Hey, do you want to make your job easier? Yes, I do. How? With this new tool." So this is a conversation. So you might ask me, well, what's the new tool, Mike? And then you might ask me, how will that new tool make my job easier? It is up to us to communicate that in our content and in our visuals. So you might say, oh, the new tool, it's right here in your menu bar. And when someone says, well, how does that make my job easier? Well, it automatically creates your reports when you click the button. Oh, okay. Now what we're doing is we're setting up the evaluator, the reviewer, with a reason to care, how we're going to give them that motivator. Motivator could be a benefit. There's other types of motivators. And then we're going to prove it in our document. We're going to spell it out. We're going to make sure beyond a shadow of a doubt that it is clear and concise. Now that's conceptualization. I'm figuring out what I'm trying to say, who I'm trying to say it to. The next thing is I need to start rendering the graphic. I need to start making the graphic. The first thing I'm going to do is I am going to chunk my content. What I mean by that is I'm going to break it up. I'm going to break up my content. So if you were to look at a document, my proposal graphic, I'm trying to make a proposal graphic, and my goal is that my client adopts our new software tool. That is my goal. My announcement, my M&M message is make your job easier by using this new tool. M&M motivator is make your job easier. How? By using this new tool. Now we're going to spell it out. The new tool is called Auto Report, and it is a new button found in the main menu. It automatically generates your project reports once all tracking fields are completed and project milestones are met. The reports are then automatically emailed to all project stakeholders. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin to highlight what I think is the most important content that I have created. I think that this is the important stuff. So what I've done is I've followed the process so far, and now I'm beginning to break it up, basically pulling it out of the document or highlighting it in the document. So the next step in the process is to assemble those pieces, assemble those chunks, because I need to tell a story. There's an old saying that facts tell and stories sell. So if we do what we're supposed to do, we are very likely to get engagement and then tell a compelling story that provides demonstrative evidence of our capabilities. So if we take that document about making our job easier, and I were to get rid of everything else that doesn't matter, the thing that matters the most are the pieces that I've highlighted. Then I'm going to take the remaining pieces. So I have these chunks of information and I need to assemble them to tell a story. So now what I'm saying is once all the tracking fields are completed and the project milestones are met, you click on auto report, which then automatically generates your project reports, which then automatically emails them to the project stakeholders. And therefore your job is easier. So I have now told a story and I'm getting much, much closer to a graphic, much closer to a graphic. The next thing in my process is I need to picture it. I need to visualize what I'm trying to communicate. And there are so many different graphic types. And one of the downloads I'm giving you is all of my favorite graphic types in a matrix to help you choose the best graphic type. There are so many from which to choose. I believe there's well over 50 or 45 on the graphic cheat sheet that I'm going to give to you. And that is going to look like this. And the way it works is once you decide what you're trying to communicate at its core over to the left, be it hierarchy, processor flow, transition, then you would be able to choose one of the graphic types that are listed in that particular row. So if the information is simple, you would choose from the yellow column. If the information is perhaps complex, you would choose from the orange column. And then you can go through and look at these graphics to see which one might actually be the best fit for you. So at a glance, you can go through here and say, you know what, I don't think a puzzle graphic is going to work. I don't think a pipe graphic or a funnel graphic or a Venn graphic will work, but I certainly think a spiral graphic will work. And you can always look them up on my website and see hundreds of examples of these graphics, hundreds of examples of these graphics. Oh, by the way, the website is billiondollargraphics.com if you care. So then let's use this technique right now. So we have this process that we're trying to show. Using the graphic cheat sheet, this is obviously a process or flow. So what I'm going to do is real time, I am going to demonstrate how I use this process. So we have so many different graphic types that we can share, and I'm going to go with a, let's change the color of this. I'm going to go with a road graphic. I'm going to go with a road graphic. So let's create this particular process. So step number 1, step number 2, step number 3, step number 4, and finally, this is the outcome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sketch out. I highly recommend that you sketch it out first. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a sketch of a road graphic. So here we have a road. Here we have the endpoint. So number 5 goes here. So this is number 5. That's the endpoint. Make your job easier. To get there, there are different milestones. So different places in the road where we are able to do that. And these represent steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that is one way to do it. And I did this in minutes. I'm able to conceptualize and sketch out a visual to see if it's going to work or if it's not going to work. That is how the process and using the graphic cheat sheet operates. Now, when you render your graphics, it's always best that I'm about ready to give you tools to do it yourself. It's been my experience that it's always best to render your graphics with the right person, meaning that someone's going to be able to do it better, faster, and cheaper than you can. And those people are either in-house designers, for example, my company, of course, shameless plug here, folks, and then freelance designers. Now, the most important thing to remember when you choose someone to do it for you, you want to make sure that they have bid and proposal experience. Just being a designer does not mean that they know how to help you win. So my recommendation is whoever you choose to do it for you, they have the experience. Okay, so let's say you have to do it yourself. Well, it's important to understand some key factors because a talented, trained designer will understand what I'm about ready to tell you. Back in the day, if you could create something that looks like this, you were considered the bee's knees. People thought, wow, how did you make that? It was called skeuomorphism. It was trying to look like reality. And then came the advent of the smartphone. The smartphone had a much smaller user interface. So if I were to try to shrink this down and it was 8 pixels by 8 pixels, it would be a muddy mess. So things became simplified, much more simplified, and that became the style du jour. That was okay for a while, but people said, you know what? I want a different style. I want to be able to sometimes use a little bit of skeuomorphism. And in 2016, the Google came up with something called the material style. Here's why I'm telling you this. Because if you are over 40 years old, the rule of thumb is this is what you grew up with, the traditional style, and you like or prefer that. You associate that with higher skilled designers. People who are under 40 years old grew up with flat style, and they associate this style with being more skilled designers. But what happens if you have a mixed audience? What happens if you have 1 to 120-year-old evaluators? Well, what we have found is that the material style is the best style for that. Again, a trained graphic designer would know this. So you need to know it as well if you're going to do it yourself. So here's some examples. This is skeuomorphic design trying to look like reality. This is flat design, keeping it as simple as humanly possible. And last but not least is the material design, which is using some skeuomorphism such as three-dimensionality, but without any graphic embellishment such as gratuitous drop shadows, textures, bevels, and things like that. Think of the material style as if you've heard this nursery rhyme or heard this story, the Goldilocks of the styles. This will not go away for a long time. But how do you make this in your graphic software of choice? I'm going to assume that you have PowerPoint. And I assume that you are somewhat proficient in PowerPoint. So taking a look at this graphic, we are using basic shapes. If you look at this, this represents the gumballs. Also the letter A, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you look at this object right here, this is just an arrow. If you look at this object right here, it's just a can or cylinder. And if you wanted to make something a bit more complex like this, I'm going to give you step-by-step instructions on how to do that. So if you wanted to build something a bit more complex, you'll need to learn how to build it in PowerPoint. So I'm going to give you the steps to do that. Once you understand how PowerPoint works, you'll be able to build things faster. Of course, again, I always advocate when you have a choice between building it or buying it, if it's cost effective, always buy it. And that includes hiring graphic designers. But sometimes you don't have that option. And it has been my experience that usually it's a hybrid between the two, meaning sometimes you buy or acquire or work with a designer, and sometimes you don't. So what do? My 3 favorite tools are, number 1, Pexels. Pexels is an amazing resource. Pexels is an amazing resource. Let's go back here. So if we go to pexels.com, it's great for videos and photos. So if you're doing an oral proposal, great for videos. If you're doing a written document, photos are fantastic. My next favorite is called Pixabay. Pixabay is another favorite of mine. Again, it has images, videos, and even has some music and vector objects. Vector objects are math-based graphics versus pixel-based graphics. So pexels.com is a free resource. Pixabay is also a free resource. The next favorite, my 3rd favorite, is called Build-A-Graphic. Oh, and by the way, before I forget, write this down. If you like the tool, there is a 10% off coupon code that you can use. It is BAG50. Again, that's BAG50. But what is it? So it's something that I had a hand in making because we couldn't find anything like this in the world. So we needed to make it. So I worked with my fellow Microsoft MVPs and we created this tool. So it has 2 options. You can either build your graphic from scratch or you can use pre-built graphics. If you take your text, you have your text, what you'll do first, and remember what we just learned about gas cap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my Build a Graphic tab, and I'm going to chunk my text to break it up into bite-sized digestible pieces, just like we did. I'm going to remove anything that I think might wind up in my narrative, meaning that I do not need all of this information because it's going to be in my narrative. There's no reason to add it to the graphic. The next thing I'm going to do is move my content around on the page to accommodate visuals, because I'm going to accompany my content with visuals. So I'm going to place it on my page so that I can add graphic elements. The way Build-A-Graphic works is it analyzes all the keywords and phrases on your slide and then gives you visual representations of those keywords and phrases. So you have so many from which to choose. So I'm going to choose this visual here. It is what's called vector-based, which means that you can change the style of it. So if I want to make it look like a blueprint, I can give her a blue outline and I can give her a white fill and she looks like a blueprint. So I can change the style of it to match any needs that I want. Also, a tip that designers use is I'm going to face her the opposite direction so that she's looking at the content. I'm going to scale her down and I'm going to place her, co-locate her with the appropriate step. I would repeat that process for each one of these. If I want to separate it even more, I could draw a circle and then place that circle behind each one of these. I'm going to send it to back. This is completely your prerogative, and repeat that process for each one. I can also add arrows. By the way, here's a cool trick. Old school arrowhead. Right now, this is an old school arrowhead. This is a new school arrow. So a new school arrow removes the end of the arrow and just makes it more simplified. So if you look at this, we have simplified arrowheads. Once I do that, I can change the font. I can change the background color. I can add it to my PowerPoint slide. You're also going to have access to all this kit of parts. So if I needed to make a road graphic, you'll be able to use these pieces to make road graphics. Or perhaps you want to make a pipe graphic. So I can take these pieces, these pipe pieces, and assemble them to tell my story and change the style of them to accommodate any brand standards that I may have or any color palettes that I choose to use. You can also use pre-built graphics. So here's how it works. Pre-built graphics, let's go back here. Same example. So if you notice, we have 7 steps. So we're focusing on 7 steps. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to build a graphic. and I'm going to choose 7. And what I get is a host of visuals that communicate the concept of 7. So I'm going to look for a graphic that I think personifies growth in a certain area over 7 steps. I like this graphic. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply copy my content from my narrative and paste it into the visual. So I have something that looks like this. Once I do that, I can then take this graphic and place it into my PowerPoint document or place it into my Word document or InDesign document. All of the files are vector-based, which means that you can copy and paste them into Adobe Illustrator or anything like that and InDesign, and you are good to go. So they're great graphics for showing holistic views, day in the life of content, as well as more traditional graphics, such as Venn diagrams or road graphics. You're going to have a host of different options, risk matrices, 3-dimensional risk matrices, and so forth and so on. So you have a sea of options when it comes to visual communication. So those are my 3 favorite tools. I absolutely love them. Let me suspend this. And that tool is $99 US dollars per year. So Pexels and Pixabay, they are free. Pexels and Pixabay are wonderful. They don't help you create infographics, but they're great for photographs, videos, and other things, but not good for infographics, whereas Build-A-Graphic is made for creating bid and proposal graphics. So that's how you would picture it. Those are the tools that you would use, the techniques that you would use to create just about anything that you can imagine. Oh, and by the way, if you look at this graphic right here, I am using basic shapes. We have a circle here. We have an arc. We're using an arc right here. All of these are basic shapes to create everything that you're seeing. Basic shapes make up all visuals. Alrighty, I promised you at the end I would give you a link. Here is the link. I'm going to copy and paste it into the chat window in a moment. If you want to do a screen scrape, a screen grab, take a picture, please by all means do. I'm about ready to copy this into the chat window. So here we go. Discard my changes, escape, copy this. I'm going to paste it into the chat window, which is right here, to everyone. All right. Here we go. That's the link to download the stuff. By the way, in the download, you do not have this coupon code. So if you want the coupon code, here it is. Last time, this is the coupon code. I will forget otherwise. There it is. All right, let's go back. Let's keep going. So Bhaskar, I am going to take any questions that may have come up and ask people to type into the chat window. What was your biggest takeaway? Did you have any aha moments, or you thought, you know what, Mike, I already knew this, but this was a good reminder. So type into the chat window, because I'm curious. Sarah said material style, learning about the material style. Yes, the arrow. I know, AJ, right? I know. So simple. Keep it simple, silly. Absolutely. Any of your big takeaways, please share it in the chat window, and any questions. Yeah, I know, Michelle. PowerPoint, I'm blown away. I'm an Adobe person. I love Adobe, but I got to tell you, I'm living in a PowerPoint world. How can I make PowerPoint do what I want it to do? And that's going to be a combination of learning these DIY techniques and then, of course, using those tools. Cool. Thank you, Melinda. Thank you, AJ. I love the circle thing. Yes, absolutely, Melinda. All decisions should have a reason. All decisions should have a reason. Remember, the reason why most bids and proposals fail is because they're created by the author for the author. We're not the decision makers. Who cares if we like it? What matters is, does it resonate with the audience? All right, Bhaskar, any questions that may have popped up during our session?
Yes, Mike. The first question, again, because can I get a copy of this presentation, because people would like to share that. To actually subscribe to by build the graphic, which is positive. Because that's a good one. And I think you already shared that link, Mike. If you can share that again, that will be great in the chat box so that people can download the presentation. We will also share that part of the webinar at the end in 24 hours. We just consolidate and we'll send whatever the links and messages that Mike has shared. It will be coming in a consolidated email as well, including discount code and things. Okay, question number one, official question is, let me read it. Number one is, in build the graphic, how difficult is it to change the graphics to your own company brand requirements?
It's super easy. Let me show you. First of all, let me copy of presentation right here. Boom. There it is. There's that. So let me show you. Let's go back here. I'm going to close this and I'm going to reopen. So if this was, let's say this is, let's say when we need to create this for my company colors. So what you would do, there's a few ways to do it. One way would be to simply click on the objects and let's say that your company color is actually a more of a deep red color. So I can click on it and I can easily change those colors. If you notice, I'm able to change those colors very quickly just by simply clicking on them and doing that. The other way to do it, so you just click on it and change the colors. The other way to do it would be that if you have something that has a lot of different colors, there's actually a few ways to do it. So let's say I have something that has a lot of colors. What I can do is, let's say I change this color and I like this color right here. What I can do is then click on the format painter, which is up here, double click on that format painter, and then I can apply that style over and over and over again. So you can double click on the format painter. So there's lots of ways to do it. There's a third way. If you're interested, just reach out to me and I'll share it with you.
Thank you, Mike. That was useful. Mike, is it better to create graphics before you write the body text, or is it better to write the body text first and then create the graphics next?
My experience has been I need to figure out what my goal is. I need to figure out what my goal is first. I need to figure out my message or my announcement, and I need to be able to spell it out. So I write that first, and then I create the graphic. And then from that, then I create the body text. So there, some of the body text, some of the narrative is created ahead of time. But once I've created the graphic, then I expand upon what's in the graphic in the narrative. So think of the graphic as an agenda to what I'm about ready to share with you.
Thank you, Mike. Mike, and also because obviously the customer, when in their tender document, will have their own colors, will have their own graphics. When you're repurposing the customer's graphics, is it better, what your suggestion, to use the customer palettes in our submission, or to also rebrand that to our own company's brand lines?
This is the very complex challenge. It sounds very complicated. I'm going to simplify it. So if your goal is to build mind share, Alan is having trouble. So let me do this. Hey, everybody, I'm about ready to hopefully solve your problem. I'm going to try this. So my experience has been, if your goal is to build mind share, I am going to use my company's colors. If my goal is to build trust and I don't care about mind share, then I am going to use my customer's colors. It has been my experience that building mind share is critical to long-term success of your organization. Think about Coca-Cola, think about any successful organization. They brand their content not as what your company's colors are, but what their brand is. And over time, it becomes almost as familiar as their colors. So that builds trust. So it's an investment over time. I have a whole workshop on branding. Quick question, everybody, does the link I just placed up there work? It should be clickable now.
Okay, Mike, let them go through that and click it. In the meantime, Mike, there are some colors which are overused, like blue And there are some colors that people say never use. And I know these colors vary by geographies. In your opinion, Mike, is there any colors used to use, not to use?
Yes, there's something called the blue phenomenon, and scientists don't understand why. Monique, yes, we will be releasing the recording. Scientists do not understand why, but most people in the world, not just in the UK, not just in the Netherlands, love the color blue. So that is a very, very safe color. Blue is considered the most appealing color. Green is secondary. Color has meaning as well, so make sure you associate that meaning. Building mind share trumps just about everything else. I mean, it beats everything else. So if my company's colors are red and people say, oh, don't use red in a bid or a proposal, you know what? Use red if you need to build mind share. It doesn't matter, because in the long term, the benefits far outweigh the detractors in that situation. So blues and greens are considered the most appealing colors. My rule of thumb is, if your goal is to build mind share, it's a long-term investment and worth it, use your company's colors. If your goal is to build trust quickly, because if you have two bids exactly the same colors, one uses your colors, one uses your customer's colors, the one that uses your customer's colors will win, because it is more familiar to the evaluator or the decision maker. So if your goal is to build that trust, you don't care about mind share, use your customer's colors. And if you want to play it safe, blues and greens. Colors also have complementary and analogous colors. My recommendation is stick with what's called analogous colors. If you don't know what that means, Google it, you'll figure it out. Any other questions?
Thank you, Mike. That was useful. Mike, graphics in a presentation to graphics in a Word document has its own look and feel. What suggestions would you give for people who are using graphics in a tender document? Can they lift and drop the same graphics in presentation, or the other way around, the graphics that they have done on the presentation, can they lift and drop on the Word document?
If there are some techniques to share documents between PowerPoint and Word, for example, written and oral, they are two different mediums. So my recommendation is that you handle them slightly different. However, you can do it. So if I were to go back, let's go back here. So one of the techniques that I use is, let's say I have this slide right here. And from this slide, I create this graphic. Now, this graphic is optimized for a PowerPoint document. If I were to take this graphic and place it into a Word file, the font size would be messed up. It would be very difficult for me to optimize this for the different medium. So what I do is I scale this graphic. So I have my graphic, I group my graphic. So I choose a range, and then I choose, let me move the widget out of my way, choose a range, and I go to a range and I group this object, all these assets. I group all these assets. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide how big the graphic needs to be in my Microsoft Word, InDesign, whatever file. So if I have 1-inch margins, I'm probably going to make it approximately 6.5 inches wide, or however, if you're using different paper sizes, just do the math. Take the centimeters away, scale it accordingly. So what I'm saying is make sure that the graphic is the same size it's going to be in your written document. Then from there, I can take my graphic, I can open up Microsoft Word, and I make sure that my fonts are scaled proportionally. And then I can copy and paste that graphic into my Word document. And now I have a graphic that's now optimized for the Word document that I also used in my PowerPoint file. So that is the technique that I use. Any other questions?
Mike, even I got lost in this. It's amazing, Mike. Thank you.
Sure.
Mike, as a question that always pops up in my mind, question also raised here. How often do we need to use graphics?
My recommendation, that's a great question. My recommendation is that there's only 3 reasons to ever use a graphic in a bid, proposal, oral, written, anything. Number 1 is it's a critical success factor, meaning if the evaluator or decision maker misses or misunderstands this, we lose. So it's critical. Things that are different stand out, and a visual is going to stand out. For example, if I were to show you, let's see if I can pull this up very quickly. If I can pull this up very fast, we'll do it. If not, we will not do it. So let's go to, let's try it. Fingers crossed, everybody. Let's hope this works. So if I were to go to this particular page, written document, right, it's thinking right here. If I were to go to this document right here, your eye is most likely going to go to the visual. And so for that reason, I'm going to use the visual to summarize key important points. So if it's a critical success factor, I'm going to use the visual. If it's too complex to understand textually, I'm going to use the visual. Think of your organization's organization chart. Way too complex to communicate textually when you can just show an org chart. And the third reason is I want to elicit a very specific emotional response, meaning that at a glance, I want you to think of my organization as modern, innovative, clear, very good at communication. So I'm going to use the visual. I'm going to use visual cues, aesthetics, to help elicit that emotional response. Any other questions?
Mike, what's the proposal graphic? Because I know, as you rightly pointed off, there are colleagues who have done graphics, but they have done for web design banners and other things, brochures and stuff. But proposal graphics is very unique. From your experience, 3 tips of do this for proposals and 3 tips for don't do this for proposals.
Well, the first thing is for proposals is going to be always have your motivator and means. Think of that as your action caption, the text that appears co-located with your visual. Make sure that you've clearly summarized what you're trying to communicate and you have an implied or explicit motivator. So that's first and foremost. Number 2 is make sure that you remain compliant. And number 3 is make sure that the style that you choose elicits the appropriate perception or emotional response of how you want to be seen. For example, if you want to be seen as modern and innovative, you would choose between the flat style and the material style, depending upon your target audience. If you want to be perceived as more traditional and safe, you would choose more from the skeuomorphic or traditional style. So those are the 3. If you're not doing bid and proposal graphics, pretty much it's the wild, wild west. Just watch out for creating graphics for yourself. So if you're creating graphics, you don't have to worry about for non-bids and proposals, you don't have to worry about compliance. So just make sure that your content is legible. Again, well, sort of dovetailing, make sure all of your decisions are meeting or have a reason. Specifically, my recommendation is meet your brand standards. You want to follow your brand standards above all else, because that's really, really important. That's going to build trust. That consistency is going to build trust. And the third thing for non-bid or proposal graphics is to make sure that your visuals will resonate with your target audience. So make sure you have your target audience in mind so that they can, quote unquote, see themselves in there, or that they are going to be more drawn to your content compared with an alternative. And that's off the cuff, so forgive me. There may be a better answer from Bhaskar, but that was what I could pull out of my tuckus.
Mike, that's amazing, Mike. And that's it. So finally, Mike, is there any beginners graphics training program? I mean, like people who are writers, obviously, if they want to pursue, a quick crash course on graphics or something, is there any recommendations that you have?
Yeah, I have some videos online. If you go to the YouTube, they're free. Of course, I offer workshops, but if you go to YouTube and you go to just search on my channel, I have a bunch of videos that do step-by-step tutorials. So you can find some things there. Also, I have a book called $1 Billion Graphics. Forgive me, I'm not a big fan of promoting myself. But it's the only thing I know that's quite like this. So there's a book out there, and I'll place the link. That's another place you can go. Reach out to me. I'll send you places. I'll send you, if you're interested in getting training with me, I'll send you that information. And I definitely recommend getting Build-A-Graphic if you're thinking about doing it yourself. It's going to expedite your learning curve because it's also a visual learning system. You'll learn what visuals represent what messages and or content. Any other questions?
100%, Mike. I think at $99 for a year, right? I think that subscription is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, that brings it to the end. And just for people who have stayed so far, we will share a few goodies. So I'll ask you 3 questions from this presentation. Whoever answers this, you could have access to any course within Scribble. This is just for you for turning up and to make Mike to join the session. To question number 1, Mike said M&Ms. What does M&M stand for? Whoever writes first.
Can I answer? Just kidding.
Oh, nice. Okay, good. Mike, is it motivator means or means in motivation? Or both?
A motivator and means is best case scenario, because first I need to engage people, and then I tell them what they're going to, how to get their motivators. Got it.
So, Lisan, well done, you. So, the next one is, Mike shared 3 sources. Obviously, Build the Graphic is one. What are the other 2 sources?
Nice. We got a lot of people. We got a lot of people who are focused.
Exactly. And you guys deserve. Perfect. Mike, who do you think is the winner? Sarah?
Oh, who answered first?
Yeah, it's Sarah, I think.
All right, then that's who it is, Sarah.
Pixels Fix Away. Okay. The last one. Mike talked about a word for blue. There is that word, that overusage of blue, and there is something around it. What's that name?
Oh, I don't even know this one. I don't even know what I said.
Yeah.
That's a tough question, Bhaskar. That's a tough one.
Yeah. So is it blue phenomenon, Mike?
Yes, it is the blue phenomenon. It's scientists don't understand why we love the color blue. We have guesses, but we don't know for sure.
Got it. Those are the 3. And would you like me to ask 2 more, or you are happy with it? Because I think
I'm happy with it. If you're happy with it, I know that people have busy days and I don't want to keep them too long.
Thank you, Mike. That's it. So again, guys, the slides will be shared, the discount codes and all the links will be shared part of the webinar. Thank you so much for tuning in. Next week, we have Ashley. Week after, we have Richard. Then we have Eric Gregory, and it just goes all the way until the next foreseeable future. So thank you for joining in. Thank you, Mike, for everything. And thank you all. Look after yourself. And we will keep you posted. The recording of this will go live in the next 48 hours. Thank you. Thank you, everything. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for everything. And guys, stay healthy, stay happy, and see you very soon. Take care.
Bye, Bhaskar. Bye, everybody. Thanks.